The month? Oh, last meeting of the year. Sorry. First meeting of the month, last meeting of the year. Excuse my non-participation in the tie today. I've just had recent surgery and it's just a little bit uncomfortable, so I apologise to members of the public and councillors, good afternoon councillors and staff, members of the public. Nice to see you all. Merry Christmas and all that sort of thing. I just ask Councillor Truman to give us a blessing for the day to make sure everything goes smoothly.
I te atua ka rawa kia tata mai koe kia mātau I tēnei rā, mana ki tia mātau mahi katoa I runga I tingoa o te matua o te tama o te wairua tapu, ake ake, āmene.
Thank you very much, Councillor Truman. I'll go to item 1, which is apologies today. We have apologies from Councillor Roseanne Jollins and Councillor Tonganui Kingi. Otherwise, it's a full house. It's moved by Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Conflicts of interest. I'll just signal a change here. We have some visitors from the... We'll do the conflicts of interest first. I'll declare that I do have a conflict of interest. 5-1, I think it is. 5-1 was Kinloch Lakefront Reserve because of legal advice. So I'll be asking the Deputy Mayor to stand in on that one if that's okay, and also just like to bring something forward. We have some special visitors here today, the Tiara River Iwi Trust, Eugene Berryman Camp and Nuku Nicholson. We'll bring that item forward now and deal with that now if you like, which was 5.5, page 42. That's the joint management agreement with the Tiara River Trust. So just because the visitors are out of town, and welcome, kia ora, tēnā koe to you guys, and we'll bring that item now. So who's Nick, Mr. Nick Carroll, our policy manager. Good afternoon, Nick.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. I'll just give you a brief introduction and then I believe Eugene may want to say a few words, given that this is quite a momentous occasion. So the agreement we're talking about today is a joint management agreement with the Tiara River Iwi Trust. It's technically required by legislation, but more so it's a good thing for this council to have moving forward in terms of an enduring relationship with this iwi. It'll help both parties to develop our different aspirations in a more cohesive way going forward. You may well remember, or some of you may well remember, this agreement's been bouncing around since 2012 when we had a draft. It got parked at that stage towards the end of 2012 as Tiara and Tūwharetoa needed to work through some issues of mutual interest. That's taken a little bit of time, but those have been worked through. What we've now got sitting before you is a substantially redrafted agreement. The agreement should still look reasonably familiar though, because it's essentially the same as the one that you already have in place with Rokawa, who are obviously based to the north of Taupō. So in terms of the structure of the agreement, it's virtually the same, but clearly we've got different parties to that. So without further ado, I'll bring Eugene up, and I'm quite happy to ask any technical questions after that.
Okay, thanks, Pascal. Welcome, Eugene.
Kia ora. Yes, kia ora koutou no reira he mihini tēnei I tēnei wā, ki te tautoko ngā kaupapa I tēnei hui, no reira ngā member o te kāngahera tēnā koe, ngā te Tūwharetoa ki te mana whenua ki tēnei arohi tēnā koe, ka mate, haere, tātou te hunga ora, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, Your Worship, the Mayor, councillors, thank you for your time, and Nick, thank you for jumping in your time too. But as Nick has outlined, this is a historic day for Te Aroha River Iwi Trust. This is actually the last of our 4 joint management agreements. We have them with Waikato Regional Council, Aotearoa Lakes Council, South Waikato District Council, and now Taupo District Council. And as Nick has touched on, the path for this one's been a little bit slower. However, we've taken that time to make sure that there's consistency with the other 5 river iwi that we work with. Obviously, Te Whare Raukawa, Te Arawa, Waikato Tainui, and Ngāti Manipoto. At this point, I'd in particular just like to thank the members of your team, Nick, Kendall, and for Dominic to help us navigate our path through these last 6 months, and look forward to working with Taupo District Council, and in particular look forward to the official signing ceremony that we hope to have early in the new year, probably based at Ohaki Marae, which of course is a Ngāti Tahu Ngāti Whawa Marae, but the important thing is it's on the Waikato, and it gives us good focus for the work that we have to do. So again, I just wanted to come up and just say thank you for the work that your team has gone through, and look forward to building the relationship with Taupo District Council.
Thanks, Eugene.
Kia ora.
Thank you very much. All right. Did you want to add anything to that, Nick, or any questions from the councillors by any chance? Councillor Buddy.
Chairman, not specific to this agreement, but where does this sit in with the Waikato Healthy Rivers with the Regional Council?
So the vision and strategy is enshrined in legislation, which also requires councils to have joint management agreement with 5 river iwi, as is dictated by different jurisdictional boundaries, territorial boundaries. The joint management agreements provide a mechanism for Taupo District Council to contribute towards the vision and strategy being achieved. By and large, a lot of the responsibility sits with the Regional Council, Waikato Regional Council, given that their prime functions are around managing water quality and discharges. However, we clearly have some role to play as a council who has land which impacts on the catchment of the Waikato River. In a resource consenting perspective, that's very limited to activities on the surface of the water, so very limited input in regard to resource consents. However, it's our plan-making activities that we do in terms of updating the district plan periodically, which probably have a much greater influence. Decisions around things like intensified land use, which land can be used for pastoral farming versus, say, less intensive forestry as an example, or the location of buildings with respect to the Waikato River can also have an impact. So there will be some instances going forward where we're changing the district plan, and the different river iwi will want to have an input as to how our decisions, or sorry, your decisions, might well impact on that achievement of the vision and the strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buddy. Any other questions or queries? Okay, well, thank you very much. All pretty straightforward. Look forward to the celebration. There's a suggested recommendation there that the Council approves the joint management agreement between the Taupo District Council and the Te Ara River Iwi Trust. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Truman, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, we'll go to confirmation of the minutes. 3.1. The Taupo District Council meeting that was held on the 29th of November. Any matters arising or any points of clarification of those minutes, please? Thank you, Councillor Harvey, for conducting that meeting for me. It's appreciated.
My pleasure. I'm pleased you're better.
Thank you. Could I have a mover, please? Those minutes be accepted. Thank you, Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Boddy. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Receipt of the minutes 4.1 of the ordinary Turangi Tongariro Community Board meeting held on the 22nd of November. Any matters arising or points of clarification of those minutes? Okay, more straightforward. Could I have a move, please? Moved by Councillor Cousins, seconded by Councillor Rankin. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, item 5. 5.1, if I could just ask the Deputy Mayor to come and take the chair for a minute, thanks.
Lots of copies now. Right, okay. Okay, so, Nick, thank you.
This matter's been ongoing since 2014. It's had a long germination. Over that period, there's been a collection of reports which have been presented to elected members. There have been several rounds of consultation or engagement with the community to gather views on different aspects. And you've had some technical information such as arborist advice along the way as well. All of that forms a body of information which you need to use in terms of your decision making today. But essentially sitting at the heart of the matter is a decision around the level of vehicle access onto the reserve which you believe is appropriate. And in considering that, there are a number of, elements or matters which you need to weigh up. One of the key ones is a responsibility around the district plan. District plan identifies a number of trees, the poplar trees on the reserve, which are considered to be notable and therefore require a level of protection. In a practical sense, that means that vehicles should not be parking within 4 metres of the base of those trees. There's a policy indication that a greater level of protection would be desirable, but in a practical sense, that 4 metres provides a very clear boundary. Issues of erosion, and particularly foreshore erosion, have been raised through the process. You'll be aware that we've got the Lake Taupo erosion and flood strategy, which was developed jointly with the Waikato Regional Council. They've submitted very strongly in support of reducing vehicle movement on the reserve as a way of maintaining the vegetative cover, which they see as quite critical, and certainly officers' support as being quite critical in terms of maintaining the stability of that foreshore. It's clearly a piece of reserve which has undergone erosion in the past. We've been through a fairly benign period of weather conditions, but the expectation is that erosion will continue into the future as well. Car parking is seems to forever be a critical issue when we're talking about all sorts of things in a Taupo context, but certainly in this situation, car parking is something to consider. At the moment, people have been able to drive onto the reserve and park wherever they wish, which has certainly made things easier for individuals in terms of unloading equipment and having things close by. What we're talking about is potentially a change to that arrangement and therefore a displacement of that car parking. In a positive sense, there are other parking options in the immediate vicinity, be they on road or the formed car parking, which abuts part of the reserve. There's also the potential, as I've talked in the report, to enhance some of that car parking and therefore increase its capacity into the future. That clearly comes at a cost. In terms of costs, the financial costs very much depend on the sort of outcome that you're looking for. I guess as a general guide, the more that you're looking to enable vehicles onto the reserve, the greater the cost will generally be. And that's based on the requirement to put in protection for the trees through the concept plan work that we consulted on. We talked about soft landscaping as one way of achieving that. And there's also been those discussions about the extension of the road to the end of the reserve. But the last factor I wanted to talk about is, in my opinion, one of the key ones, and that's the growth of Kinloch. Since 2007, when the Reserve Management Plan was adopted, we've seen about a 57% increase in the usually resident population. Kinloch has gone through a boom in terms of population. That's expected to continue into the future. We've got probably a little over a third of the structure plan area is still to be developed in Kinloch. So there's going to be more people there, there's going to be more holiday homes there and people looking to utilise land at a peak. What that means is there will be more pressure on the finite resource, which is the lakefront reserve land. One of the questions you've got to weigh up is what's the best use of that land looking to the future? Is it a mixture of parking and picnicking or recreational activities, or do you want to shift that balance? And the officer's view is that balance should be shifted towards allowing people to recreate on there and not so much of the vehicle parking. So those are the issues, those are the things which we believe you need to consider looking forward, and I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Yes, Zane?
Through the Chair. Thank you, Nick. Just you mentioned about pressure on reserves, and there's a third more of that place to be developed. Is Council taking any steps to rectify communal living space issues? Because obviously we would have done this when we structured the whole setup in the first place, I would think, in regards to where we're going to put more reserves. Are we allocated as part of that development process out there where there's going to be more reserves?
So as subdivisions take place, there are discussions about specific subdivisions and the requirement for reserves, and that is something that happens as a matter of case. I guess the point I'm making is that the Lakeshore Reserve is a very finite resource. So even though we may create more open space reserve areas in subdivisions, which happen further back from the lake, the fact seems to be that people wish to go and sit beside the lake when they picnic.
It's a Kiwi right.
Yes.
It's a right we Kiwis have. So my concern then is if really at the end of the day we hold the strings as the development of that area, we could stop it. I've mentioned this before. It's not that I want to stop progress, but
There are some growing impracticalities around council pulling down the shutters and saying no more growth in Kinloch.
I'm saying if we're responsible, we are meant to be responsible, then it's just a question that concerns, it's a thing that concerns me. That's the only point I had to make. Thank you.
I agree with the proposal to close it. I think that lake is our most precious jewel. Without it, we would just be a little backwater town, and I think we really have to protect it. And while I would never advocate anything much that Auckland does, it does have a reserve at Long Bay on the North Shore, and it is a huge reserve, and no one is allowed to park on the reserve. There's parking spaces, and they're close, like the parking spaces in Kinloch that we're going to offer, and people trudge along with their canopies and their picnics and their barbecues, and they didn't like it to begin with, but they've got used to it, and it's now just a matter of course, and it does protect a precious piece of land, and that's what we've got to do as far as I'm concerned.
Barry?
Yes, Nick, can you refresh our minds on the detailed plan that we instructed officers to draw up, please?
Yes, I've got copies here, just in case.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve. So this is the concept plan that you went out and consulted the community about. The plan was intended to ask a few questions and seek community feedback. And you'll see on the right-hand side there's the blue dotted line. That's extending from the point where the current chain is, prohibiting any further vehicle movement, through to the end of the reserve, creating a turnaround area. You'll also see some sort of yellowy green shaded areas. Those are essentially the protected areas, the minimum protected areas we would have to have around each of those notable trees. And one of the questions that we talked about at the time that this was being developed was the approach you took around that level of protection. Do you simply put out a post and rail fence, or do you look to use a different combination of ways of keeping vehicles away. Maybe some of it's soft landscaping, maybe some use of rocks. Potentially you put picnic tables around some of the edges. So you could look at a real mix of different ways of keeping vehicles away from those areas. That all comes at different costs depending on the sort of outcome that you're looking for. But very much the focus was, does the chain stay where it is, and does the road get extended, or is the status quo maintained, or is there an alternative?
Nick, I have a question. Can you tell me, is there a ski lane along that part of the beach, please? I just can't see it marked here.
I believe the ski lane is to the left of the Scotsman's Ramp as you're looking at the...
That,
Yeah, so to the left of the page. Now, one of the interesting things that we've noted over the years with regard to car parking is that that car park area that's formed to the left of the map, so it's just off the edge of the map, tends to be used by those who go and launch their boats at Scotsman's Ramp, and then park their car and trailer in the parallel car parks on the road. If you were to change the configuration of that car parking to angled car parks, what you would end up doing is moving those people in with their cars and their boat trailers over towards the other side of the marina, where they've got the opportunity to park on the domain there. So you'd be displacing that sort of car parking as well.
I read somewhere that would, how many car parks would that?
You approximately add, I think you've got about 17 there at the moment. You get to about 46, depending on your engineering, but it's in that ballpark.
Councillor Cousins.
So Nick, with that last comment, do you still perceive that people would use the Scotchman's Ramp and go right the way around and park on the domain?
No, because in reality, what's happened is a couple of large bollards have been sunk very deeply either side of the Scotsman's Ramp to ensure that you can only launch very small craft, as per the decision that Council's previously made. So in reality, what I think we're going to see is a lot less usage of that Scotsman's Ramp, particularly for the larger boats, which will now be forced to go around and utilise the proper boat launching facilities in the marina.
Be interesting to see over the summer.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of the challenges. Whenever you make change, you're never 100% certain about how people will react to that change. And we've talked about car parking. If you change the ability for people to park vehicles right on the reserve and drag their chili bin out and put it next to the car, if you change that scenario for them, they may choose to go to a different reserve. They may choose to park somewhere and drag their equipment down. They may choose to walk down to the beach and not take a chili bin. People's behaviour will adjust, and what we're not 100% certain on is exactly how it will adjust. I guess a good example is on the other side of the marina, you've got a turnaround area and some car parking next to the playground. That's an area that enables people to drop off or park if they're not able to walk very far. We may well start to see that side of the marina utilised more by those sorts of people as opposed to this side. It's unclear until you actually make some change exactly what those implications will be.
Through the chair.
John.
Yeah, thanks very much. Obviously, one of our major responsibilities is protect the integrity of that beach through our law, through our strategy. And by doing it, obviously, it's going to maintain the quality for people to enjoy that beach as well. But on the other hand, we have, I do take Councillor Cousins' point, as we mentioned, the growth in the district, the Kinloch area, and with holiday makers and residential development, whether we have to consider the peak periods with people wanting to park, parking down there. There's the option of angle parking, etc. But So I'm tending towards thinking, I don't want to see the whole, beach closed off. I'd like to see, I don't want to see it completely open as well at this stage. That's the way I'm thinking at the minute.
So you're thinking leave it open? What are you thinking?
The part of the reserve open,
As it is?
yeah, status quo. Yeah.
Could I just, through you, Madam Chair, ask the question, page 14 of the agenda paper states in that if the reserve was closed to vehicles, it would comply with the district plan. Then when we have a look at the reserve management plan in regards to parking, it states allow vehicle access and parking within the reserve in designated areas only. What does the district plan actually say for reserves, vehicles or no vehicles?
The district plan doesn't have a view on parking on reserves. The district plan talks about the notable trees, and it talks about not having vehicles within 4 metres of those notable trees.
Okay, so the comments in the agenda that states would enable council to comply with the district plan isn't exactly correct.
They are exactly correct. If you close the reserve, then vehicles can't park within 4 metres of those trees and you will comply with your own district plan. If you erect barriers around the trees, as long as they're 4 metres away from the base, you will still comply with your district plan. At the moment, you don't, because cars can drive directly onto that reserve and park underneath those trees.
Thank you.
Yeah, so from reading all the material and from going to site visits to see it, and from also visiting during peak periods, I know the area well. It's not only the Kinloch residents that utilise this, but lots of people from outside the area come in. So I think that it's important that we preserve this area, like protect the environment, and I think that's more important than the convenience of being able to park close to the water. But in saying that, we do have a lot of people travelling in to come here, so it's not local. So we need to do the parking, and I think it needs to be in the recommendations that we look at that now, not let's see what happens. I think that's essential that we do something about that, because by closing it off, we are taking out so many car parks, and that's just going to put that problem back on residents in the area. So yeah, I would like to see them the recommendations that we look at parking now.
Zane?
Through the Chair, I sent an email out to all the councillors earlier on about the trees that are there, because we didn't ask for people's thoughts on the trees as part of that consultation process. And the comments and the feedback was quite strongly, but there was a large thought process of that past their use by date. At 20 to 50 years is the maximum life expectancy for those Lombardy poplars. We never actually asked the community what they really wanted, and I think that should have formed part of that process, because even though on this plan here, some of these trees are actually coming out already, aren't they? They're going to apply for resource consent to remove some of them. So this plan's actually already out of date, I suppose, to a degree. But which trees are they that are coming out? Some of these trees are actually coming out. Do you know which ones they are on the plan?
I couldn't tell you exactly which. I believe there are 3 which need work on them due to their health. I guess what I'd add is that in response to those questions from the community, the arborist considered the health of the trees, and his advice was that the balance of the trees, other than those 3, were all in healthy condition and didn't need to be removed.
The study I've done everywhere, every piece of literature on the internet from qualified arborists and horticulturists say these are trees you don't plant in public spaces. 60 years they become unsafe and they degrade from there on after, and they shouldn't be planted on public spaces. And if we're going to remove these trees, yes, we have to get a resource consent because they're notable trees, I get that, but if we're going to have to do it anyway for some, shouldn't we have included as part of our consultation process with that community? Because that will change the whole landscape there. And when I spoke to the arborist, council arborist, he said that we should be planting the natives out there. That's what should be there, not these trees. Even though they have some historical relevance to that area, we haven't had that conversation. So
I guess just to clarify, the reason that the trees are in the district plan is because they were promoted as being notable by parts of the community and then went through our full Schedule 1 process under the RMA, which involves public submissions to clarify whether the community considered them to be notable and whether they should be included in the district plan. So that process has been undertaken, and the community had an input into that process, and the decision that was made was that these trees are significant enough to be placed into the district plan and have protection. Now, that's not to say that that view won't change over time, but if you wish to change that, then you've
I'm
got...
not saying us, I'm saying the community didn't get the opportunity. That was my concern, that they didn't get it, because there were very few in there, if any, that said, the trees need to be maintained, blah, 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 blah. Most of it was trees past their life, get them out. That's what I read in the submission. I don't know about the other councils, what they read in there, but that's what I saw. I wasn't looking for it, that's what I saw.
And Chair, could I just follow on from that, because if we turn to page 6 of the submissions we got, exactly what Councillor Cousins is talking about is written here by that particular submitter, who states, "I resident arborists inspect the poplars who is strongly of the view that apart from any risk of the trees falling, the shredding of branches pose a real possibility to injury for those sheltering." He goes on to liability. Who's liable if those trees tip over, shred, do damage or injury?
I'm not able to provide you with legal advice, but I believe, Nigel?
Well, through the chair, there is a potential for the council to be liable if it hasn't taken all reasonably practical steps to address a known hazard. My understanding is that those trees are under regular inspection by the council arborist, and so in that way, that sort of hazard that you've referred to has been appropriately managed by the council.
Thank you.
Nick, in parts of your report, if the decision is made to close the reserve, you refer to very little maintenance or cost of that. It's my perception, really and truthfully, if we do close this reserve off, then we should really landscape it and make it a nice area, and that would involve some costs. I think this has been the downfall of this particular piece of reserve over the last probably 20 years. The council's made decisions in the past, but they've never actually put the budget to develop the reserve properly from the decisions that was made earlier. And I mean, if we close the reserve off, then to me the road should be removed, and we should really landscape it. So there is a cost in that type of decision making. Would you agree?
The decision is up to you. I guess the objectives that we talk about in the paper are around protecting the trees and providing recreational space for the current community and the future community. It's very much a decision for you as governance around the quality of that recreation space. You may choose to leave it as grass, you may choose to remove the roads, you may choose to put in significant landscaping, both soft and hard. Those are very much decisions that you make regarding any reserve space that you have through your annual plans and your long-term plan budget decisions. The comments in my report are very much about trying to achieve those objectives and what are the costs associated with the different ways of trying to achieve those objectives. If you place a barrier or a chain up at the entrance to the reserve and prevent vehicles going in, you then leave all of that reserve space open for recreational activity without that conflict with vehicles, and it costs you the price of a chain. That's not to say that you won't want to do further enhancements over time to that reserve.
I just wanted to confirm with you that when we did the site visit, where the cars had been was a mess, and where they hadn't been was actually quite a pleasant spot. There's still the road there that you might want to change at some time, but it hadn't been destroyed or damaged in the area that the cars hadn't been. So it was them that caused a lot of the damage to the area, not to the trees, but to the grass.
Yes. And that was some of the feedback we were getting through the last round of consultation when we talked about the extension of the road. We had a number of submitters who talked about the benefits they derived from having the chain in place and there being a regeneration of the grass in the recreational area at the end of the reserve.
Thank you, through the chair. I sort of, like Councillor Williamson, am of a mind about leaving part of the reserve open, because I think once you actually get the barriers put around the poplar, that's going to reduce a lot. And when you read through the report, it does say that there's likely to be reduced vehicle damage to the foreshore vegetation and whatnot, which WRC was submitted strongly on. However, if the democratic process was that the reserve be closed, I would like Councillor Truman, that the angle parking be instigated immediately.
Through the chair. I think it's worth to be mindful that, 70%, three-quarters of the submitters wanted the status quo through both consultation processes. So if consultation is worth being regarded, I know we have to make hard decisions contrary to public opinion, but
So I'd like to know, perhaps Dennis, would you be able to give us an idea of the timeline to put in the parking and the cost? How long would it take if we decided to close? By Christmas? No.
I wouldn't know at this stage, Councillor. It would depend on the availability of our road marker and exactly what he's doing and where he is.
By Christmas? So it wouldn't be a quick process.
I don't have an answer for you, I'm sorry, it's such short notice.
I like answers.
It may also require some additional tar sealing and curbing and channeling, which obviously will require some sort of tender process, so that would increase their time. I think realistically we're probably unlikely to have a rearrangement of that car parking in place for the peak of the Christmas period coming up, but would certainly be in place for the 17-18 summer.
I would tend to agree with those who are, if it was agreed to close it, I would say we would have to have the parking organised prior to that.
We've talked a lot about the parking in that area directly fronting the reserve. The other consideration, of course, is there is the potential to park on the road in the adjacent streets. Now that potentially causes some tension with adjacent residents. That's something for you to consider.
Right. Yes. So how do we all feel? Do we have a mover for any of those suggestions, which are? Where are we?
Well, I would move the recommendations on 5.1, page 14, the three of them. Receive the submissions, agree to close the reserve to vehicles, agrees to make changes in the reserve management plan. So I'd move that way.
And I'd second that.
So, anyone like to speak for the motion or against the motion?
Sorry, are we able to add to it? Like as in? Ask for an amendment. Ask for an amendment, yeah. So mine are the two things. Mine's the parking, because I think that's just going to be a huge issue. So mine would be that we start addressing car parking, needs to go ahead, and also that we look at the timing. So I think we need to leave it open this summer, because I just think it's going to impact on the locals too much if we just close it off. But that's how
the suggestion would be that the reserve agrees to close the reserve to vehicles once additional parking has been created, which ideally won't be before the summer anyway, so then it will be past that. So I guess the question is, the mover and the seconder happy with that?
So the additional parking will be, having been down there recently again, where you're moving it further towards the marina?
Correct.
Yeah.
Along the frontage.
Just next to Scotsman's Ramp, is that right?
So the additional
Go to the site visit?
No, but I've been there twice. once during the summer.
So between
That's
Scotland,
one very clean,
Wales and the marina.
yep.
Can I just clarify, that would mean leaving the thing where it is, the, yeah, for this summer, the chain.
this summer,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, we leave the chain where it is. Okay, yes, I can agree to that.
So we don't close it until we have the parking in place and done.
So you can't second my resolution.
I can't, sorry.
I move that it be closed, you move that the chain stays.
For 1 year.
Yeah, but just until the parking's done. So I support you, but I also support the
How do we
additional.
say
You do the
this?
amendment
Do
first.
the amendment first, don't you?
Yep, so you need a seconder for Kirsty.
So you've got a move and a seconder, we've now got an amendment, so I'm assuming that Councillor Truman is moving the amendment. So if you know, or a seconder, if you get a seconder, then that will
I'll
put on the
second.
motion, so you
I'll
have
second.
not, then all vote.
I'll second the amendment.
So you have a seconder, so then it's all of those in favour of the amendment.
Is
Can you read out-
is it an amendment or is it added to as a course of action to take place?
It's an amendment to the resolution as put in the resolution.
Well, it depends how you want to word it. So number 1 would stay the same. Number 2 would be agrees to close the reserve to vehicles. And that would be once the additional parking has been created.
I'd accept that.
So that would be the amendment.
That's the amendment part.
Yes.
Yep. So you'll vote in two parts. One is on the amendment first, and then on the original resolution.
That could become the original one.
So it becomes an original.
Yeah, that's agreed
One.
to.
You can just add the amendment.
Just one.
Okay, so we don't need that.
So can we read that whole thing out then, once you've done the change, please?
So there's 3 parts. First is receives the submissions in relation to Kinloch Lakefront Reserve. Number 2, agrees to close the reserve to vehicles once additional parking has been created. And 3, agrees to make consequential changes to the reserve management plan to reflect the closure of the reserve to vehicles.
Can I raise a point?
Yep.
There's no talk in there of the poplars, but that's just a given, is it?
There wouldn't be anything else required, would there? Closed.
Because we are going to be doing works to that area to put barriers around the poplars, are we not? Or is that just?
We don't need
Closed
to,
off.
do we?
No, we don't have to.
No, but there would be works there. I think it's what's come through and what our arborist and the team have identified is that regardless of the decision, there needs to be some work down there, both to the trees and for replanting and things like that, just for the very reasons that you've talked through.
And I agree with Barry that I would like to see some sort of landscaping and other work once it is closed to beautify the area. Do we need to say that?
It's closed.
No?
No.
Barry, that I would like to see some sort of landscaping. So now what do we do?
So you've got a mover and a seconder. So there would be anyone who wishes to speak in favour or against the resolution, and then vote.
Zane?
I suppose I'm sitting with Councillor Williamson on this one, the man who's been here the longest out of all of us, listening to the community, the majority of what the community wants. I thought that's what we were here for. I just wanted to remind the councillors of that.
Sorry, Mr. the Chair, I'm still not happy, not completely happy at this stage, closing it completely. But notwithstanding the fact I do respect the beach has to be protected and the trees to be protected and will incur some costs, so I still maintain that stand.
So we need to vote now.
Councillor, Madam Chair. I'd have to speak against it. I know this process has gone through the correct process. It's been a lengthy process and we've made decisions previously to this particular decision. There's been submissions. I support Councillor Williamson because I think this decision is putting more implications on other residents in the area which we've not actually consulted on. We've changed it through closing this reserve. We are now changing quite a conceptual visual effect to other people's property. by putting further parking down on the other side of the Lake Terrace. The other thing is that if we would have made the decision earlier to close the reserve, then I would definitely have voted for closing the Scotchman's ramp, because that does implicate on the parking. I'm definitely in favour, if it is closed, that we do a complete landscape plan and price it and put the money, fund it properly, because that's been the downfall of this reserve, as I've said, for a long time. And so therefore I vote against it, because the resolution really is only talking about car parking and the protection of the trees. And so therefore I vote against it, because the resolution really is only talking
Okay.
about car parking.
So we'll do a show of hands to see who's in favour of the resolution. All those in favour?
5, so all those against.
So we'll do a show of hands to
Wish
see
my vote to be recorded, please.
Motion passed. Backlash.
those in favour. So the motion has passed.
Victor.
In the name.
Can we score for division on that one? We recorded the division.
Recorded our votes against it, yes.
Yeah. It's your opinion. You're not always right.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harvey, for that. So we got 5.2. Right. Freedom camping. Nick, you again.
I get all the good jobs. Unlike Kinloch, which was a simple issue, this one is fraught with difficulty. It's fraught with perceptions and stereotypes and misinformation. And it's been a real challenge for us as officers. We often when we come and talk to you and give you advice, we're talking about information we've analysed, and we're giving you technical advice to assist your decision making. In this situation, there's pretty limited technical information that we have access to assist in the decision making process. What we do have is an abundance of different views. What's become quite clear as we've worked through this issue with the community and with a specific working group is that there are growing numbers of domestic and international visitors who wish to use freedom camping, at least in part in terms of their different journeys. We're seeing that increasing number of visitors using freedom camping starting to have an impact on the community and the things that the community values. And we're seeing that particularly in some of those key lakefront locations. In the past we've talked about the likes of Stump Bay and 5 Mile Bay and the Taupo Landing Reserve as real pinch points. Recently in a workshop you heard about the difficulties Genesis has had down in Takanu and the tensions that we've had there between freedom campers and people utilising the boat ramp. At the same time, there are positive economic impacts which are associated with freedom camping and this growth in visitor numbers. What's a little more debatable, I guess, is the level of that economic benefit that's derived. And MB's produced some statistical information, but of course, when you're looking at this issue at a global sense, at a national scale, that necessarily doesn't translate into on-the-ground economic impacts in the Taupo community or the Turangi community. The fourth thing that's become very clear through this process is your decisions as governance, as council, and the decisions of others impact on each other and have flow-on effects. We've talked about the landing reserve and we've talked about 5 Mile Bay in particular as real pinch points. Those are areas which cater for a significant number of Freedom campers at this point in time, but they're under the control of the Department of Internal Affairs and the Department of Conservation. So the decisions that those departments make impact on the sorts of volumes of Freedom campers that we will have to cater for as a council. And likewise, your decisions about where you allow Freedom camping may well displace campers onto, say, the Department of Conservation land. That's something you need to be very conscious of. Throughout the process, and particularly the feedback from the working group, there's been a reasonably consistent message about the desirability of moving Freedom campers away from those lakefront locations, and particularly the points where people access the lakefront. That's about a desire to reduce those conflicts with day users, and if I use the Taupo Landing Reserve as an example, you've got people down there early looking to launch kayaks or go for a swim if they're training for multisport. They are finding it challenging negotiating their way through all the Freedom campers who are currently located down there. There's also a desire to reduce the negative community perception that Freedom campers are using the high value space, and I think we've seen a bit of this tension around Ferry Road as an example, where the community's provided feedback to suggest that they're not comfortable with Freedom campers who are paying nothing, monopolising what they perceive to be high value space. What you've also seen through more recent correspondence from the Tūwharatau Māori Trust Board is a tangata whenua review around concerns about Freedom campers and their behaviour, particularly around water and their interface with water. And we've certainly talked about those issues in the context of Reed's Farm, where we have a lot of Freedom campers utilising the river for cleaning and utensils or washing themselves. In approaching this issue, as officers, we believe that your first step as governance is to find where you sit on the continuum. At one end of that continuum, you could look to be very encouraging of Freedom camping, look to be quite enabling about where it can happen. At the other end of the continuum, you could look to be quite restrictive, as some other councils have done, and provide very limited options about where Freedom camping can take place, bearing in mind that you can't put in place a complete prohibition. You need to work out where you sit on that continuum, because once you've established that, you can then start to look at the areas that you wish to open up for Freedom camping to enable those objectives to be achieved. What you've got in the report is a list of areas that were tested through the recent consultation exercise at the end of November. I would like to stress that that list should be used by you as a starting point. It's provided because that's the list that we consulted on. However, you may wish to add or remove sites depending on the feedback in the report or what you have heard and read through that consultation exercise. Officers' view is that that list contains a reasonable capacity for dealing with the Freedom camping numbers that we're likely to see in the near future. In many respects, it's a compromise. It's sitting towards the middle of that continuum that I talked about. Now, if you wish to be a more enabling council, you may want to add more sites. And certainly there's been feedback from some members of the community to say, let's really open the doors and be more enabling and see if we can get more of that economic benefit. Conversely, you may wish to remove sites off that if you wish to be less enabling and you're more concerned about those user conflicts and that conflict in the community, particularly the local community. From a process perspective, once we've got an idea from you about those sites, we will rebuild the draft bylaw and we will rebuild the statement of intent, and we'll bring that back to you in February, the 7th of February, where you can approve that, and then we'll go out for that formal consultation. Actually, the last thing I just want to add is, I think it's the next item on the agenda is Reed's Farm. So please also bear in mind that this project and Reed's Farm are intricately connected because of that freedom camping theme. So the timing of this will impact on the timing of the Reed's Farm consultation, because we intend for those to go in parallel, and then for you to consider the submissions and conduct your hearings at the same time as well.
Sorry, just through the chair.
Councillor Park.
Thank you. Nick, former council, we passed a resolution for Ferry Road, didn't we? Was it passed by resolution that we allow self-contained camping?
Correct.
Can we not go back out, or can we not add Ferry Road to this and consult on it again? Because I think quite a strong feeling is that we take these away from the lakefront, take camping off the lakefront. So I would have thought that that site would be included as well.
You can definitely add in any sites that you wish to, and what you would have seen in the attachments was a long list of additional sites which have been raised through that November consultation exercise.
Okay. Well, I'd like if my colleagues support it to add Ferry Road back into the mix, please.
Councillor Ickling.
Well, I think I'd be opposed to that, Your Worship. I think the idea behind the freedom camping was to try and get the campers off the lakefront, per se. So that's why I was looking at the Rickett Street area, which seems to be compromised and acceptable by the Caravan Association or Camperman Association. I would really like to see them off Ferry Road, full stop.
Just through the chair, I think, sorry Councillor Hickman, that's sort of what I meant. If we go out and have it in the mix, then we have the ability to decide its future, I would have thought. Because status quo, if we don't take Ferry Road into account, means that it stays, doesn't it?
So the intention of this would be that Ferry Road would disappear unless you
Okay,
put it in
cool.
Yeah. Is that okay, Councillor Park? I definitely, the general feeling is out there that we want
As
to.
long as we just make sure we've got it covered off, because we don't want to take it away and then have people say, oh, it's been there for ages.
Yeah, so we're going to be clear, as of right, they can do it now. So through this process,
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, but if it
Make
is
sure-
disappear, as long as that's communicated, I suppose.
okay.
Through the chair. I think
Councillor
having
Williamson.
been part of the working group, the last three working groups, I think there's obviously support for and against. So I think obviously we thought probably if it's a draft bylaw going out for consultation, it can still, if it's included, it can still be, depending on the consultation, can be kept or taken out.
You can do it, it'd be showing a bit of intention there that Ferry Road's still under consideration. I think that's the whole idea of the thing is to try and get it
Yes,
out.
sorry, through the chair, I will withdraw that because the intention is to take it off the lake, not to reconsider, I understand. Got it.
No, just as long as we go through the process, make sure that's actually done.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Any other questions of Nick? Councillor Rankin.
Can I just clarify with you, Nick, the consultation group, someone asked me whether it had any campground operators. It did.
Yes, it did. It had representation from the national group as well as local campground
Thank you.
representation.
Through the chair.
Councillor Williamson.
Obviously, with free, you can almost say it's either free camping or freedom camping, or free camping is obviously all with non-self-contained vans that, that don't want to use the facilities like that. They are very, very good camping grounds, and as opposed to freedom camping, who have self-contained, who may or may not stay in camping grounds. So obviously, we need to have be a situation where we can encourage people to go to camping grounds, but also accept that people aren't going to do that. So by perhaps offering, I was questioning obviously with Koromatangi, Commander Robert Street, if they were to be allowed or considered as in the draft bylaw or going out for areas they can park or overnight. There has to be some pretty strict rules around that.
Okay, well, perhaps what was the best thing to do, Nick? Go through this list of the locations
Yes.
to see if we're all on the same track on that. You know, you've got, obviously, you've consulted so far and you've got, you know, so many support, so many opposed on page 33. So perhaps go back to page 25, Reed's Farm. So we're happy to consult on the basis that all campings there. Richard Street, which is the new particular area that we've identified, which appeared to be, we were pretty happy around the council table about it, but you've got quite a few opposed to that. I presume they're schools and things like that, are they? Or
So in that locality, you've got the Kura, the Kāinga and a couple of preschool operations, and there was definitely some feedback of a negative nature from those operators, concerned about things like rubbish and security and danger to children. So we were getting some feedback, and very similar with regard to Horomatangi Street, which is abutting onto the playing field that the Taupo Primary School used. They were raising similar concerns about danger to the children and additional rubbish and security issues.
so can those issues be addressed during the bylaw process, or?
Yes and no, and the reason I say yes and no is that there may well be management responses that can deal with things, but as I said at the start, you're also dealing with perceptions, and we can't necessarily change perceptions through a management response, and perceptions around the safety of children is something that's very difficult to try and address.
Okay.
So, Your Worship, so was we recommending to actually use Koromatangi Street for parking of these vehicles?
We're very much looking for a direction from you as governance.
Is that what the working group looked at, was actually parking
Or through the
on
chair,
Koromatangi Street near the children's?
yeah, through the chair, there's a few parks there with a toilet block as well, so obviously even with
That's what we
self-contained,
was looking at.
yeah, self-contained vehicles are still often prefer to be where there are facilities like that, yes. So there was an option considered.
That was supportive of the working group was supportive of that, Koromatangi Street?
To be very clear, the working group didn't reach consensus on a full list and the same level of support for every site.
They reached agreement away from the lake. That was the
Yes.
Yes.
About where they went from there, everybody's got their own views in this process.
And there were definitely different views based on the level to which people thought that as a town we should be motorhome friendly. So if there were people who wished to see a very enabling approach, then they wanted to see more areas provided. If there were people who were less inclined to be enabling, then there were a few areas that they saw as appropriate, but they weren't so concerned about what we could possibly term secondary sites. So I guess that's why I made the point, you really need to work out where you sit on that continuum, and then you'll have an idea about how enabling and therefore how many areas, how much capacity you wish to provide.
Through the chair, you've just had a pre-consultation process where ratepayers have responded with their thoughts as per page 33. I think you need, from a consultation process going forward, to be seen to listen to what people say.
Okay, so was anyone on that list there, probably the best way forward is an absolute no-go?
On Koromatangi Street, there was 17 opposed it.
and only one for it.
Okay, so take that
Rickett
out.
Street was surprising,
Well,
30, sorry.
Yeah.
Rickett Street was the same, 51 against. 21 for. Turangi Town Centre, personally, I'm not a fan of having camper vans in our car park. It's right outside my office.
I thought
And
they were going to park there.
yeah, they're right outside my office.
Yeah, it's good.
That's right.
Great.
We'll put them in your car
They might
park.
want to buy houses.
No.
Okay,
And the discussions at the community board were the same, if I'm not mistaken. You were there, Tina and Gareth. There was discussion about that. I can't remember fully, but I think the community board weren't too keen on it. They were wondering why it wasn't on that other car park close to the toilets, was the questions that were raised. Is that correct? The question was raised by Charlene, I think it was. Yeah, why it was so far from the public toilets, and you mentioned about being close to Tongariro Junction. Yeah, I'm not a supporter of that.
Okay, what's the best way forward here, Nick? Like, the general feeling is we're still happy, we're still okay with freedom camping. I'm
Yes,
perception
yes,
is
yeah.
that we're happy with freedom camping, but not in the lake margins or like close to the lake. So these are the options here we've come up with. So what I would like to know, and we will need to go around the room, I'm not too sure whether we got that way, it might be a long-winded process, but are these going to be included in the bylaw process or not? So let's cut to the chase. Reed's Farm, yes. Rickett Street, I know there's a lot opposed there, but I myself personally, I think it's it's certainly still in the CBD, and it's vacant land. It's unproductive land at the moment, you know, it could, to me, it seems a sensible, logical place, but I can understand the concerns of the educational people and things like that, but whether we can address those through the bylaw process, I get some support around the table for that, or?
I think
Councillor
too,
Rankin?
I've had quite a lot of feedback just on the street, and people think Rickett Street is hideous and that we shouldn't send people there, but we are going to make it look pleasant, aren't we? Which is what I've kept saying.
Work would be required to do some levelling, clear away all the rubbish, the weeds. You could create a pleasant outlook. We discussed with NZMCA, got them out on site, talked about the appropriateness of that site. They were supportive. They could see the potential there.
So I think a lot of people felt it's just a horrible place.
This could be an opportunity to actually, to do some stuff down there too.
Mr Chairman, in regards to Rickett Street, what's the costings for the infrastructure? So effectively, the ratepayers will be picking up the cost of that infrastructure.
As is noted in the report, this is not free camping because there's always a cost. And that cost comes in terms of people having to pick up rubbish, clean toilets, provide toilets, as the case may be at Rickett Street. And that cost falls on the ratepayer. So while the camper may be making some economic contribution to town, the cost of their facilities and the maintenance of their facilities falls on the ratepayer. That's the reality. In terms of Rickett Street, we've signalled that if you were going to make that a substantial area for freedom camping in the future, we'd expect that you may want to look at providing some toilet facilities, because the indication is that even self-contained campers like to have toilet facilities. We'd expect that there would be some rubbish receptacles in place and therefore some operational costs associated with that. The costs of levelling some area, clearing away weeds and so on, we can do the basics in terms of existing budgets, but those additional costs of putting in new toilets, as an example, will be something you'll have to budget for as part of the annual plan process.
Through the chair, in addition to that, there is part of that Rickett Street area that is potential commercial development land. So I would not like to see that opportunity removed.
It's all the horizontal infrastructure here too, isn't it? Underground infrastructure.
Okay, Rickett Street, yes or no? Around the room, Councillor Park?
I'm not in favour, but I'd be. This is about consulting on sites widely, so I sort of why are we sitting here nitpicking through the sites? I'm not quite sure why. Why just consult on them?
So all of them?
Let's consult and
Explain the
let's see what ideas
It's a
come out.
bylaw process, so we go out again with the selected sites.
So 2 documents will go out for the community. One will be a draft bylaw, which will have the sites that you wish to see freedom camping take place on. And then the second document will be our statement of proposal, which says why are we doing this bylaw, why do we think it's necessary, which sites have we decided to include for which reasons, and which sites have we decided to exclude, and what are the reasons for that. So for example, Ferry Road would be sitting in that statement of proposal with an explanation of why we don't believe that Ferry Road is an appropriate place. So the community will see both of those documents and have the opportunity to provide you submissions on both of those documents.
Well, I'm sorry.
Leave them all in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, I have been a fan of Rickett Street from the start. If that's what the question is.
So what's your suggestion, Nick? Leave them all in and then people will tell us?
It's very much your decision as governance.
Yep.
Through the chair, there's quite a decent consensus with all these sites, with the working group anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just to clarify,
Councillor Hickling.
Your Worship, Alan, I'm assuming when you're talking about the commercial site, you're talking about that road close site in between the 2 commercial buildings? So can we, because obviously that's important from a council's point of view. Where's the map? How if we keep that site as a commercial site, how would we access it? Would we access it right off the corner of Rickett Street and down, one access, or?
No, I think you would come off as at Waikato Street.
Yeah, well, that's the commercial side.
Well, the commercial opportunity exists
Well,
in behind the 2 existing sites, I believe.
They go behind 20, 34 and 44. See those numbers by the buildings? In behind them. That
20, 34 and 44.
Yeah, 20, 34 and 44. See that bit on the left there, those buildings?
Yep.
The land in behind that, we've had some interest being shown as far as commercial development.
Okay, because the piece outside of 44 was actually a road close, some years ago. The green piece at the side of 44, I thought that's what you was meaning as a commercial site.
The interest that we are starting to hear is actually behind those buildings.
Okay.
But
all of 20, really.
So in fact, it could, who's to say that it doesn't...
Could be an access to it.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Doesn't come into the T as well.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't want to put the map out if we feel that there's some commercial gain.
I'm just flagging that it's not all of Rickett Street. Yeah.
This is showing that it is all of Rickett Street though, isn't it?
Yeah.
For camping.
Exactly, and that's my concern.
Yeah, so do we need to draw a line and before it goes into the public arena?
You can approach that.
I think we do.
Yes.
Surely. I mean, there's plenty of room up towards the Rickett Street corner for freedom camping, surely.
Plenty of room and
Yes.
stop, yeah, so.
And keep that commercial.
Perhaps we could adjust that plan.
And keep that commercial.
Boys and just see where we could adjust that, the line on the plan.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Please.
Do that, Nick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank you,
Through
Barry.
the chair, the same at the other end near 55, which is a early childhood centre.
We actually talked to the Early Childhood Centre about the potential to stop that entrance at that end and actually create a turnaround area further towards the bottom end of the site, I guess. So there are some little management solutions that we can put in place to address some of their concerns about vehicle movements. I guess what you need is some direction from the community about the principle of having camper vans in that locality.
Okay, all right, so leave it in there with boundary adjustment. So Horomatangi AC bars, so the suggestion here is to just put them all out and then we'll soon hear back as to what's not desirable. How's that sound?
That's fine.
Agree with that.
Okay, so in the recommendation there, 5(2), insert the areas as per page 25.
Yes.
Yep, happy with that, Nick? And perhaps have a look at that boundary change, where there are some commercial opportunities. I would not like to let commercial opportunities disappear, that's for sure. Although bearing in mind, we'll still own the land.
Those sites that you're talking about, all page 20
Yeah.
and 5, they're the ones that you consulted on last time. Probably page 31, those are the sites that the public have come up with. So are there any in there that you wish to resolve that and bring back to include at this stage?
Through the chair, I'd be quite happy just to go with the consensus of the working group. We've worked closely on it, and stick with page 25 sites.
Yeah, this, through the chair, this obviously with the consensus, I think, with staff, with their discretion, but also Riverside Park, a pretty touchy one. Obviously, that was discussed with the working group. There was obviously divided opinions on that one. And I know even with discussions at council chamber the workshop, wasn't it? With obviously conflict of users and et cetera, and maybe environmental aspects, but I'm not too sure why it can not be included on the draft bylaw to go up for consultation. Even it was just a few parks down there. There are facilities down there. I'm staying neutral on it. I'm not saying without prejudice. I'm just saying could it be put on the list as well?
And they got the dump there.
I guess the reason that wasn't put on was, I remember I spoke about it with you at the workshop last time, was that the sealed area there, you've only got about 4 or 5 car parks.
Yeah.
Five car parks there.
Well, that's all the talk,
So that was, and those are used relatively heavily by people who are using that area in terms of dog walking, etc. So that's why you didn't put that on. There were more than 4 or 5 sealed car parks. You could put it on and see what comes back through consultation. And what we'd need to make really clear through the process was that we were talking those sealed car parks rather than when people say Riverside Park, I think they imagine it's going back to the campground, and no one's talking about going back to a campground.
Okay. Yeah. What's the feeling on that? I think we might be opening the can of worms.
Yeah, I think we might be opening a can of worms, Your Worship, on that one.
Yeah, outside councillors' homes. That's a good idea.
I'd it not to be on the list personally, just because I've been involved with it for such a long time.
I find it quite fascinating, Mr. Chairman, that we're discussing the Riverside Park, which is where the old camping ground was, but we're going to probably create another camping ground somewhere else, which could be Willet Rickett.
Well, we did when we closed the motor council body.
Which one did you open?
Top 10 opposite the golf course.
And that's still going?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we did. That's what we did when we closed the campground in town.
Again, don't confuse yourself here. This is not about
Camping, no.
This is about allowing cars to go and park.
Yeah,
People to
2
stay
nights.
overnight. They're 2 different things.
1 night, 2 nights.
Campground and Rickett Street. Capacity within the campground is fine, but not 2 different things.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any on that list? McDonald's, Burger King, car park. Is there any appetite for that one? Fun. Don't think so. I think there's enough car parks in the other, and that's where we put in the charge station too, isn't it?
So, just through the chair, can I actually move the recommendation on page 22, inserting the sites listed on page 25 as the areas, please?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Moved by councillor Parkes, seconded by councillor Hackney. Thank you very much, Nick. A couple of sticky ones here, so that's good. And we look forward to this process going forward. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 5.3. Reed's Farm Management Plan Review. All the good ones today. Lodge has been sold. Okay, good afternoon, Jane.
Good afternoon.
See you. Right, we're at this one.
Right, this is the revision of the Reed's Farm Reserve Management Plan, and I will take the report as read, and I will also introduce Rowan Sapsford from Perception Planning, who has been undertaking the review on behalf of us.
Okay, good afternoon, Rowan.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors. Just following on from Jane's signal, take the agenda item as read. I'll just briefly cover a couple of points. I guess we, just a reminder to the councillors, we had a workshop about a month and a half ago. The contents of this paper and the supporting material is consistent with that workshop. Subsequent to that workshop and at the request of the council, we did meet with the Reeds family, and the Reeds family were generally supportive of what was anticipated. I think their view was anything that is going to enhance that area is going to be beneficial in their eyes, which was quite a good meeting. But so we've got the item in front of you with a set of options. There's also the supporting material, which includes the background report, consultation report, as well as the draft reserve management plan, as we're suggesting is notified for consultation.
Did you converse with them regarding the possible name change?
Yes, we did, and their view was they're happy with the name change. I think one of them said there's been some behaviour at the site previously where they thought a name change would be good from their perspective.
Lovely. Okay, thanks, Rowan. Any questions of Rowan or Jane?
Chairman, I do have a question. I think it was last week or the week before, we had the police officer here who said on that particular night he went out there was 300 people. 2 weekends ago I drove out mid-afternoon on a Sunday and there was 25 cars as you come through the gate on that top side. And then I looked at the facilities, particularly the toilet facilities. What's the capacity of that area with the infrastructure that we've got? What's the limiting factor? Because we don't seem to have taken that into account.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the workshop, I mean, the plan currently says camping should be occurring up the top only, and the current plan reiterates that, but confines it, but also suggests a bit of landscaping to make the most of that top area, and part of that would also require some capital works of toilets required to service that the camping up the top there.
Where, Mr. Chairman, in the discussions have we got in regards to wardens and security?
So within, I guess it's important to say this is about the management plan, but there's also operational discussions which happen outside of that. The options for wardens or security is in the plan, whether the council wishes to go down that path, and it's actually currently in the current plan as well.
All right. Okay, so we'll go. Councillor Williamson.
Thank Rowan and Jane and Hadley and Nick for the professional approach for the whole process as part of the working groups.
Okay, we'll see what the submissions come back as. Councillor Truman?
Yeah, sorry, I was just wanting to make sure that does the management plan allow for in the future if we wanted to put it out to become a managed camping ground? Does that allow for that? So, like, say, Motitere, how we have that, we lease that area out. I'm just saying, does that allow for that to happen?
There's options in there, as in the current one, to allow for concessions and licensed use.
Through the Chair, I support what Jesse emailed for councillors. That's a really viable option. Most other councils feel the same.
Is that a possibility?
So we'll see what the submissions say, I think.
I think it's what Rowan's indicated is that it is in the plan, so it is a possibility at the moment. If you were to make that decision, we would want to step you through quite a firm decision-making process to get there. I'd say that it would be I'd caution you in that process, and that it would be a direct competition with the private sector. And like I said, most councils around the country are trying to get out of operating campgrounds for that private sector run. This isn't about what it's not what the people who use that site want. There's plenty of capacity within campgrounds in Taupo at the moment. These people are there because this is free camping, and they are two quite different things. So we would have to step you through that decision-making process, but it's within your power in the current management plan to make that decision.
What if another operator wanted to have it as one of their?
I would say the same thing would apply. As a council, you'd have to consider how does that work when you're competing with other operators, and if you actually got a capacity issue in the town at the moment for paid campgrounds. And the answer would have to be no at the moment, because those operators are the ones who are sitting there through the working group saying we actually don't have a capacity to accommodate these people.
Through the chair, do we need to signal this so that as an idea?
It's in the management plan at the moment.
I think the process which we've identified through developing, there's specific values associated with the plan, community, cultural, environmental and recreation. So the process we've kind of embedded in the revised plan is that any kind of application gets measured against that and its appropriateness. And that would happen through the licensing process.
Say that it will happen, but
No.
it allows a mechanism that it can be accepted.
Yeah, and enables the conversation to be had in a structured manner.
Okay, all right. Any other questions or queries? All right, there's a suggested recommendation there on page 34. Go out for consultation. Make progress on this, 1 and 2, correct? Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 5.4, Lake Taupo Protection Project Joint Committee Terms of Reference Amendment. Jane?
I'll take the report as read, and I'm well aware that the actual signed variation was circulated to you earlier today. Some of you might not have seen it quite yet. As you're aware, of course, Wellington had some issues which definitely stalled the signing from the Crown, so that's why it was very late in coming. But any questions?
Okay. Any questions on the terms of reference? Very clear, very happy. Suggested recommendation there, the adopts the amended terms of reference. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 5.5. Oh, sorry, we have 5.6, correct? 5.6. Ngade Road Seal Extension. We have Mr. Dennis Lewis. Good afternoon, Dennis.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. I'll take this item as read and ask any questions. What we are seeking here is approval for the city and the mayor to accept a tender if it's within the prices stipulated in the report.
Very good, Dennis. Excuse my ignorance, but Hinare Road is whereabouts?
Hinare Road.
Western Bays? Yep. Is this in Councillor Truman's patch? Wow.
No.
All the unsealed roads are.
Okay. Oh, well, that's so that's the 400k we spend per year.
Correct.
Has been well utilised here. And no doubt we've received submissions, so this is the one that needs the most attention at the moment.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Moved by Councillor Ruman and seconded by Councillor Boddy.
So can I just point a clarification, plus or including GST?
Plus GST.
Right. Can be clarified in the resolution, please?
So it should be plus GST. Thank you, councillor Park. All right. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Mr Lewis. 5.7, we have lease extension for Waiora House, Mr Nathan Morey. Good afternoon, Nathan.
Good afternoon, everybody. So hopefully this is fairly straightforward. We've had a request from Waiora House, who provide social services out of council facilities, for a lease extension for 4 years. The main reason is to enable the end of that lease to coincide with the lease terms for the subleases. So yeah, just like your approval on that. I'm aware that there are some other things in the background, but the lease would be structured in such a way that it would take care of any possibilities in the future if you chose to change providers or anything like that.
All right, thanks, Nathan. Any queries of Nathan? Pretty straightforward there, at least. Councillor Ackland?
Yeah, it's fairly straightforward, Your Worship, but I just wonder why it's only for 4 years when on the next item we've got one for over 30 years, and we're not going to get rid of Waiora House.
So Waiora House only asked for a 4-year extension in their letter.
What was the initial lease for time?
I don't know.
Current lease.
The original lease was 11 years.
Yeah, it just sort of, it's a community facility that we're not going to get rid of. And why don't we give them a 25-year lease? I don't know.
Current lease 2007. 11 years. It's interesting they only asked for 4.
Yeah, that was so it would coincide with the terms of their subleases.
Oh, okay.
In there.
It's a timing thing.
They've got their own lease seats plus your own program going forward.
Yeah, just.
I don't think it signals, in no way it's signaling closing down as a sort of lessons line.
Hope not.
They've obviously what they've requested, so
yeah,
good point.
Yeah.
But obviously it ties them with the subleases. Okay, Nathan. Any other questions or queries on that? Actually, while we're on it, I see Johnny read here. The leases up at AC Barbs Avenue. Are they all been? Just like the fishing clubs and the red.
We're in the process of tracking down people as we go, and they're not always easy to get hold of, especially coming up to the holidays.
Yeah.
But yeah, as they are coming up, we are offering them as per the previous resolution.
Okay. Yep.
Just adding on to that, and I know the Youth Arts Trust up at the Waipahihi Hall are in the same situation, I believe, where their lease is up next year.
Are they wanting to renew? Yeah. Okay, sorry, we're sidetracking a bit now.
No, those things
just I know
about 6 months if they don't approach us first. The person that takes care of the leases approaches us about 6 months beforehand, and we'll try and track them down to ask what their opinion is on what they want to do.
All right, recommendation there on page 68.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Williamson, thank you. Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Okay, we're just at a request from the CEO to bring 5.11 forward. I see Colin here waiting patiently. Good to see you, Colin. Opal CBD accessibility audit. And we have a copy of the audit here. Good afternoon, Claire and Colin. And other members here regarding this item.
Afternoon, everybody. Before I go on any further, I'd just like to acknowledge Amanda Banks from CCS Disability Action Waikato, and Steve Taylor, who's an accessibility audit, who actually undertook the audit for us.
Cool. Thanks. Nice.
And they've both come from Hamilton, so.
Oh, sorry to keep you waiting.
And also Colin from Taupo Access Group, who's come to support us. For those of you who don't know, Access Taupo Group is a group made up from the community who've got mobility impairments, own wheelchairs, mothers and fathers with pushchairs, age concern and blind and deaf people. During one of their meetings, they actually suggested that council allocate some budget to look at doing a street accessibility audit. This was to basically cover Taupo, Mangakino, Turangi, and similar to the one that Waipa District Council has done recently. It was decided initially to focus on the Taupo CBD only, because that's where our greater pedestrian and urban population is and the tourists arrive, and it would give us a greater benefit for what recommendations came forward. CCS Disability Group was engaged to undertake the audit for us, and it included Riverside Park, Tongariro Street, Spa Road, up to Kaimanawa, and also along the lakefront to Napier Road. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Amanda and Steve for all their hard work in producing a well-documented report, and also for developing a spreadsheet for us to monitor our actions and progress. So the audit looked at footpaths, road and pedestrian crossings, curb ramps, street furniture placements, so tables, signs, and accessible parking spaces. From this, the recommendations identified major concerns, significant concerns and minor concerns, all of which have been prioritised for us. What we've done so far is actually review the major concerns or the major recommendations, and we're actually going to work through them within the next 6 months to action as many as we can. So really the main thing to come from the audit is that we, whatever we do for the built environment for our mobility impaired pedestrians, we're going to benefit everybody, including tourists coming into the town, etc. And furthermore, I think it's really important that we make sure all our staff, contractors, consultants actually work towards the appropriate guidelines and standards to make everybody healthy and safe. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Claire. Yeah, and thank you. And look, we had a brief look at the report, and certainly very, very detailed. So thank you, Steve and Amanda, for that. So any queries of Claire by any chance?
Chairman, just to make the point, I think a lot of the works that are needed to be done are covered within the budgets we've got at the moment, just the way we go about doing things.
For the major recommendations, they're actually covered within our existing budgets. However, the ones that the minor and the significant ones, will have to program into our next annual plan round or long-term plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Cousins?
Thank you, Claire, and thank you to the people involved in the audit. I was just reading through here on page 91, an example of good practice. I suppose a bit disheartened that nothing was done for Turangi, or I don't know about Mangakino, but we're a 50-year-old town and you're a 60-year-old town where you are. Just reading through these things here you have in Taupo, which we don't have in Turangi. So I'm worried that the audit isn't all-encompassing for all of us.
Through the chair, Taupo CBD was identified as the focus for the first audit, and if council see that as a success, we can work through the recommendations, and we will then look at other street accessibility audits for Turangi and Mangakino.
I think that's a given.
Chairman, could I also make the point that as the District Council's representative on Access Taupo, I make the point it's a district, not just...
Totally. In Turangi, we have what's called the Turangi limp, where half people actually walk with the limp. It's a phenomenon. So we are quite disabled. No, it's just, I'm very conscious about the whole area being looked after.
Just get out the world's smallest violin.
Play it loudly.
All right.
And also say that like we've got the likes of Kinloch as well, and there are other.
Kinloch, yeah.
Yep, great start, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Claire. Colin, did you want to add anything there? Have you read the report?
Yes, I've read the report all the way through and thoroughly agree with its findings, particularly about the existing state of paving. And we've got to remember this isn't just for people in wheelchairs. We are trying to commit a bit towards being an elderly-friendly town as well.
Yep.
We've had that edict from the United Nations, not an edict, but an offer from the United Nations to create a age-friendly town, and this is one of the ways to go about it, making the town accessible for everybody.
Thanks.
And I think the council's, I've just been following progress on the Murray Road, Tauripa Road pedestrian crossing as an example of the work the council's doing. I've given it a wheels test, and it's very good from what I can see of it.
Oh, that's down the bottom of Tauripa?
Yes,
Yes.
they're to be congratulated on that one, the engineering staff. They're working on a very steep cross slope with that, with the paving there, and they've managed to make the paving quite flat without going to the expense of making expensive cuttings and things like that. It's been quite a tricky engineering, little feat of engineering, really, miniature engineering.
Oh, thank you for that.
Chairman, just very quickly, as another aside, I brought it up at the meeting last week, in regards to mobility parking and the misuse of them. New South Wales have introduced a $519 fine plus demerit points. I'm not sure whether we can change our bylaws, but it would certainly signal to those that breach that they've done wrong. Because it does annoy me when I see them park on a disability park and I can't find a sticker to say that they are.
Fines through regulation, but it's higher than a normal overstay, but probably not high enough.
But it would certainly signal to those that breach.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Claire. And thank you, Amanda and Steve, for coming down today. Appreciate your time and patience waiting for us. And thank you for a very detailed report. And by the sounds of it, you'll get a bit more, obviously, Turing and Mangakino. And obviously Kinloch as well, because their population is starting to exceed others. So I think going forward we'll talk about those areas as well. Okay, suggested resolution there that we received the report and received the information outlined, and it's good to know that you'll be able to do most of the stuff with existing budgets. So could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Cousins. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Item number 5.9, Riverside Park erosion options.
Just stuck it
Is that right?
in, or you stuck it somewhere.
5.8, sorry.
Can't see it. Yeah.
Jumped the gun.
Well, you hit the choice.
Oh, new lease was Spark.
Stuck your name in.
New Zealand Limited.
Thank you.
Right, good afternoon, Nathan, again.
Good afternoon again. Yes, so Spark New Zealand have a small amount of infrastructure on Tongariro Domain. They wrote to us asking if we would like to pick up a new lease for them. It all seems fairly straightforward and standard for what they do throughout the country. So I don't think that there would be any major problems with doing that, so we're just after your decision on.
Where is it, Nate? Where is it?
To be honest, to be perfectly honest.
It's on the Great Lakes then? No.
We think it's in the Great Lakes Centre, it is in that vicinity. Everybody I've talked to from operations through to the facilities manager through to the parks operations manager aren't quite sure where it is. We haven't been quite brave enough to go back to Sparkers and say, excuse me, where is it? But
I will take the money anyway, eh? The money, honey.
Is it an aerial?
No, we've got no idea, to be honest.
Flagpole.
To be perfectly honest, we don't know what it is. We know it's a 3 by 3 square metres, and if nobody's seen it, we probably think it's probably not a big deal.
It's on the
It makes sense if I asked for a map, we put it there, I was a little bit angry that it wasn't.
There's a reason.
Hey, that's there's competition for the councillors, see if they can find it.
Yeah.
Where's Wally? All right, we'll take the money anyway, and there's pretty standard lease as you've outlined there. So could I have a move, please?
Your Worship, I just query again the extent of this lease. And is there any opportunity if we want it removed before the lease extension, which is 30 years, are we able to do that?
You could negotiate that with the lease.
We'd have to negotiate it.
Presumably that we are using their leases. We don't use our leases for those agreements. So we could ask Nigel to look through the lease that they send through to see what else.
Yeah, I'm just really concerned of the right of renewals. That's all.
Through
no
the chair.
problem with the lease. The
It's-
full right of renewal for 6 years.
Through the chair, we need to have a clause in there, I agree, because if we did development of the Great Lakes Centre and it affects where that particular mast is,
Yeah.
then there might need to be some ability to.
Providing there's a clause in the lease
Yeah,
that we.
I mean, just have a clause
yeah,
in the lease.
yeah.
You sure it's actually been built yet? Is it? Is this there?
I'm pretty sure, I can remember it when we
Yeah.
actually did the initial lease.
No, the lease document and objective, unfortunately, the attachment as a map isn't attached, which is fairly typical for a lot of.
What about if they wanted to modify the
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
barrier? I think might pay.
So I said, we'd have to look at the lease that they sent through and make sure that it suited what we needed it to do.
Yeah, because you know the tower issues in other areas have been a
Yeah, yeah.
hell of a nightmare, haven't they? So, should we just? Do you want us to sign off today, or do you want us to do? Should we check on those items?
We can just still.
Subject to?
Sign that off and
Yeah,
make
subject.
sure
Yeah.
that's, there's in the lease agreement.
So yeah, so suggest a recommendation that we enter the new lease, but subject to terms and conditions that are agreeable by us.
Suitable, approved by the chief executive, for example.
And minute, every minute, just that Shaney, those couple of queries here.
Yeah, I'm still going to vote against it, your worship. Sorry.
You've got a mobile phone? What happens? You'll come.
Supplied by council, yeah. No, it's just the extent of the lease. I'm not worried about the lease, but I just don't.
The extent 30 years too long.
I just, it's just me personally, that's all.
Through the chair, it's probably worth a site visit and check the lighting at the same stage, same time.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. But does anyone else have a problem with 30 year lease? All right. Suggested recommendation there, and as per recommendation, whatever. Been moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Truman, I think. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Councillor Hickling, would you like that recorded?
Yes, please.
Certainly.
You're having a bit of a militant day today.
Militant.
4 years since you voted against something, Barry?
I voted twice today.
Right, 5.9, Riverside Park erosion options. Nathan, you having a good run today, boy?
I sure am. So, yeah, hopefully you've all managed to have a look at the photos in the back of the report, which shows the extent of the erosion happening under the boardwalk. It's fairly extensive. There are some things which came to our attention during the course of the investigations, which were news to us.
They wouldn't be popular routes, would they?
What's that popular?
Popular routes.
No, they're not very popular.
So we've already carried out works to remove the public from the area because we don't think it's safe and it's necessary to get them away immediately, but we're looking for a councillor decision on how you would like to approach this moving forward. You can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars down there, if not millions, trying to protect a few metres of riverbank against the river, which, in officer's opinion and Waikato Regional Council officer's opinion, is a bit of a losing battle. So our recommendation is just to step back and let nature take its course, and which is the managed retreat option, and we're looking for you to approve staff to carry on in that vein.
Through the chair.
Down at Riverside Park.
Councillor Williamson.
There's no thought or chance of mercury being involved, is there? In terms of erosion of the...
No, well, they have a resource consent with Waikato Regional Council and an agreement with the Tuwharetoa Maori Trust Board about how much water is in the lake. So I would be, if they are fulfilling the obligations under their consent with the Regional Council, I think you'd be extremely unlikely to get them to put anything towards it.
So what you're suggesting is to retreat the path back towards...
We have already carried out some work there to enable the summer concerts to go ahead, because they did have access over that boardwalk, which is one of the things that was news to the parks team.
So what they've been
Trucks over a boardwalk designed for pedestrians, in essence. And yeah, so we've talked with Steve, who runs the events, and in the meantime, we've arranged to continue access down there for the vehicles. But moving forward, trying to get more permanent solutions down there. And
Is it just the boardwalk area?
the boardwalk is the worst affected. If you go further up towards the river mouth where the cliffs are, we know that there is erosion happening under there and undermining it. We're not quite sure of the extent. We are looking at getting somebody into the river and that's qualified to drift down there, do a drift dive once it warms up a bit, to see exactly how far undercut it is. But it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody at Regional Council who does the erosion if that cliff disappeared sometime between now and the next 5 or 10 years. So yeah, we really think that we should just be stepping back from this area in the interest of safety and not trying to protect an asset which we might not be able to protect no matter how much money we put towards it.
There's also the Rolly Habib Memorial down there, or so sculpture. Yeah, so that would have to be.
Yeah, anything which is in there, the managed retreat part doesn't mean letting everything fall in, it means managing it, which means if something is in there that we want to keep, we'll bring it back.
Okay, councillor, so the options are retreat back a bit, move the path minimal cost, or go for the doctor and put a whole...
Yeah, and as we said, there's no guarantees that putting $300,000 worth of sheet piling to protect 15 metres will even protect it, because it's likely to just go around the edge of the sheet piling and affect it further down the river.
Okay. So I'd move that way, Mr. Chairman, which is option 2, I believe. Correct?
Yep, and I'll second it.
Okay. Option 2 is here, is it? Reduce the... Yep, okay. Option 2.
Okay.
Yeah, as per the recommendation, okay. All right, moved by councillor Roddy. Thank you, John. Seconded by councillor Harvey. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Will that affect the operational side of the summer concert this year, or? Yeah. So we'll walk around it? Yeah, okay. Right, AC Bars, removal trees, 5.10, Mr Kevin Sears. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
This is an item that would normally go to Fred, but because of the Fred meeting in February, you brought this forward, yes?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, that's right. Basically what we're seeking is approval from Council for the removal of 2 groups of pine trees at the AC Baths. One we see as high priority. It's overhanging the bore site and the hot water pipe feed supply to the baths. And the other one is what we've assessed as a medium priority. They're not quite so large trees at this stage, but obviously over time they will get larger and pose more of a risk. So we're recommending that the removal of these of all the pine trees. But I guess from the council perspective, if you're uncomfortable with that, we could retreat back to just removing the high risk group of trees.
Is any value in these trees, Kev?
Not really. They're primarily just scrubby pine trees. Most of them, I'd say, have been self-sown over time. There's 1 or 2. The high risk ones are quite large. I think the cost of removing them, we might get something for the wood in it from a firewood supplier, but I think the cost would outweigh any income you might get from the wood itself.
Through the Chair.
Councillor Williamson.
This is a similar situation to the Kinloch situation, is it?
Yes, it is.
With the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, yeah, very similar. Threatening infrastructure and obviously a bit of a risk for staff when they're working in the area as well.
Okay. Zane?
I just, through the chair, I'd like to move the recommended resolution that we take these trees out.
And I'll second it.
Councillor Hickling?
You're going to talk
Been
against
moved
it?
and seconded, but councillor Hickling, he's on the roll.
Going for Patrick.
How are we going to leave the site after the trees have been removed?
Sorry, can you...
How are we going to leave the site after the trees have been removed?
I haven't really included that in the site. I guess obviously we would remove them and clear away any of the leftover branches, etc. from the site, but we haven't included anything from a point of view of replanting in any way. But I guess that could be considered.
So what about the maintenance thereafter?
Of the ground, you mean? Yeah.
We sort of a little bit the site, given it's not that well maintained and never has been.
Never has
a little
been,
bit sort of off. So everything on the photo on page 7 in the length of the overgrown grass, etc. So
Yeah.
I think this is probably going to tidy it up anyway.
But it could be a really attractive area up there.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't want people going up. We would want to allow access up there because it's our bore area.
Bore area.
It does have health safety and other issues around that and operational issues.
Yep.
But I guess the question will be more around the visual amenity and what we could or should do. And part of that, I guess, once we bring the trips down a bit, to see what that change does happen there and whether or not some planting of other shelter belt or something is appropriate to soften the look on that infrastructure.
Because there was some interest from some years ago for a backpackers hotel to go up on that side. Freedom Company.
Actually, Kev, are these not all the trees between here and between the AC Bars and the golf club, are they?
No, it's not. What we're proposing is not all.
How many would there be? 6? 5?
Oh, there's huge.
No, there would be. I'm not certain exactly, but it's probably 20 trees, possibly, or thereabouts in total. Some of them.
Value in that, I would imagine. There'd be a bit of value in that.
There's quite a lot.
Trees are worth a lot of money at the moment.
We'd like to break even.
Yeah. From the experience we had at Rakanui Road, where we took some trees out, it still cost us money, even with the recouping of some timber.
And Kevin, because this has come to full council, there's obviously some urgency. When do you perceive that this work will be carried out?
Well, because of the timing, obviously, Christmas at this stage, it's not going to happen before that. But as soon as we can get a contractor in there, so I would think a month to 6 weeks from when we award an EPO to a contractor doing the job. So early in the new year. Yeah, as soon as possible.
We could have waited till the 31st of January, then we would have had our Fred committee.
Okay, Kev, I just would like the officers to make sure that they're not worth any money. Just go on this basis. How much will you pay us to take these trees out? Not we'll pay you, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Because I know at the moment, Trevor Reed, there's two or three doing little small lots at the moment, and they pay good money for them at the moment.
Okay.
Sorry, Richard.
David, we got a couple of prices come in, and one was from an arborist. So his price was in excess of $6,000 to do the whole job.
Yep.
And we got an alternative price from a logging contractor. Yep. And he reduced the cost by $3,000 for what he would gain.
Okay.
So
I've asked the question.
So I think around $3,000 to remove the lot. If we just remove the high priority trees, it's around $2,000.
Right. Yeah. Well, you might as well do it properly.
And we've also got the boundary of the golf course with the existing pine trees that are going to remain. So and we've also got access through the golf course as well. Approval from them.
Very good. Okay, I think it was moved years ago.
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Cousins, was it? Yeah, one of the two. All those in favour, please say aye. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. You. The one that recorded it. Right. 5.12. Requests for approval to update the Eastern Topol arterial designation under the Topol District Plan. Correct?
That's correct, yes. So,
good afternoon, Gemma.
Good afternoon. This item is really just to tidy up the designation to reflect where the physical alignment of the road corridor actually is now, and we've been through, we've sent these plans off to New Zealand Transport Agency and have been working on stuff, and the piece of paper that you've just been handed is the feedback that we've received from them about the two intersections at Centennial and Broadlands Road. And basically with these two particular locations, they were never part of the designation because they ran over, my understanding is they were existing local roads and the designation was in favour of the council, so it wasn't really necessary to do that. Now, because we're transferring it to the NZTA, after we formalised this process and tidied it up, they have requested that we tidy up those two particular locations. So my proposed amendment to the recommendations is that we insert subject to final agreement from New Zealand Transport Agency, Council, and then the same stuff that's there in resolution number 1. So that means that we can just formalise these two areas with them in agreement, and everything else is as per they're happy with, as per the maps that are
We're not
attached.
giving away any commercial land here, are we?
No, we haven't added.
Looks like a big area.
Which one's that? No, basically what's in there within the designation already is being retained, and you'll note probably one of the references 15 and, sorry, for number, I think it's 50 Broadlands Road, the designation's being uplifted off that, and that improves our area in terms of that particular piece of land going forward, so it's beneficial where it can be, yeah.
Good. Okay, we're going land. Good. All right. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you very much. How's your young one?
She's great.
Good. You're old yet?
Yeah, she's 14 months at Christmas basically, so yeah, it's crazy how time's flown.
When do we get a public viewing?
By appointment.
$20. All right. Suggested recommendation there. 1 and A and B. I have a move, please. Moved by Councillor Cousins, seconded by Councillor Truman. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay. Item 5.13. Turangi Tongariro Community Board Delegations. Tina.
Worship.
Good afternoon, Tina.
Right. So this is really a procedural item. The terms of reference that we had the last training have been to the board for them to have a look at. They're quite happy with those, so this is really just formalising council's delegations to the community board.
All straightforward. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Cousins, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Tina. Item number 5.14, adoption of meeting schedules. 2017.
Lovely pretty colours. Lots of work there.
Pretty. Yep.
So this was based on some of the discussions we've had previously, trying to fit all the committee and the council meetings to meet everybody's requirements. We've tried to put on some of the workshops that we are aware of in terms of annual plan and long-term plan, and we've also left some blanks, as you can see, with the workshops which were put in your diaries, which might or might not be used.
Thanks, Tina. Okay.
So happy to take any changes if some of those might not suit, but as we did last year, if there have been some...
I didn't think we suggest that.
If there are any difficulties, we just change them on a monthly basis if necessary, as we did last year.
Yep.
Chairman, we've decided by the schedule here that our council meetings start at 2.
Yes.
Does that allow what you're envisaging, 30 minutes for groups to come to talk to council?
Yes, well, 2 o'clock will be the start. Now, whether we had that at 1:30.
Yeah, I think
mic session, you mean?
Yeah, we're still having some discussions around whether it's within the council meeting or whether you have it prior to the council meeting.
That I've been involved with start prior to a council.
So that being the case, might be 1:30.
Yep.
Private, yeah.
So public notification will be council 1:30. That would be part of the agenda.
It won't be, no.
Won't be part of the agenda.
Won't be part of the.
No, there's two well, I mean, depends how you want to go, but there's two separate ways that you do it. You'd be advertising a council meeting at 2 o'clock, and then you'd be doing an advert for your public forum from 1:30 till 2. But it wouldn't be included as part of your agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Recommendation there that we.
Just a
Just a
question, Your Worship. The council meeting on the 7th of February, do we know whether that is the full council meeting or is it going to be perhaps a workshop or a small council meeting? Just that I noticed we've got Fred on the 31st, the Tuesday, the previous of January. Because I'm not available on the 7th at the moment, I just wondered whether they could be joined together. Possible?
What normally happens in February? Normally is one early in February, do we?
Yeah, we do have one early in February, just as a bit of a catch-up for not having meetings sort of towards the end of December and early January. I think staff have planned some items to already come to the 7th meeting in terms of the draft bylaw for breeding and camping, etc., to start to comply with some of the timelines.
Through the chair, we can't have it much earlier than that because staff actually prepare papers and only just come back to leave or go on leave.
Yep, just.
You won't be here, Barry?
Pardon?
You're not here on the 7th?
Well, at the moment I've got a book in, but I'll see.
All right. Okay, we'll leave it at the
Got an opportunity of going away, then put it that way.
Good lad. You can junk it.
Well, you could call it a junket if you want to.
All right. Well, hopefully
change
the
it to
agenda
another day.
might be too
Well,
here.
there's people not here today, so.
Yeah. They'll be everywhere. Yep, cool. Okay, recommendation, thank you very much. I move Councillor Williamson, seconded by Councillor Truman. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, 5.15, approval to attend conference and training opportunities.
So there's a couple or three requests here basically for some training opportunities. The first one's around the Canterbury Earthquake Learn, Prepare and Act Symposium to be held in Christchurch with councillors Kenyon Park, who are on the Emergency Management Committee, being suggested members to attend that, and they've indicated that they would like to. The second one is Councillor Cousins to visit Twizel as part of the during the Economic Development Feasibility Study. The dates might change. We're just having trouble finding accommodation in February in Twizel. They're booked, so maybe we just have a full stop in there. I actually thought about the freedom camping, a van.
Okay.
And the last one is Bopless holding a health and safety workshop in Tauranga on the 7th of February, and again an opportunity for councillors to attend that. So
It's a council meeting.
it's in the morning, so I've arranged with them for it to finish at 11:30, so there's enough time to get here by 2 o'clock if people want to go.
Safety workshop, isn't it? It's not more operational?
No, this is aimed at elected members.
Elected members.
Yep. Yep. No, but this might be for some of the newer members potentially.
Very good. Okay, well, I don't know if you'll have too many names put on that third slide. Sorry, Tina.
That's quite right.
I'd love to go if it wasn't a Tuesday.
These trips these councillors are going on, I presume they fly economy?
Yes.
One way? Oops, sorry.
I'll just check with councillor Tonganui, councillor Kingy, whether he's interested in the health and safety one.
All right. That's quite good, John, actually. Only your better ones, actually. All right.
Good on you.
We have a mover, please, for that. Thank you, councillor Hackling, seconded by councillor Rankin. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried. Members' reports. Any reports or anything? Obviously, that time of the year, Christmas parties and.
Through the chair.
Councillor Williamson.
Last Wednesday, I attended on behalf of His Worship and the District Council, at the Taupo District, or the Taupo Cadet Units.
Oh, yes.
Inspection and prize giving.
Thank you for that.
And it was very, very enjoyable evening. Graham Hall was promoted to captain, so it's good to see the good turnout. Some the young youth of the town aspiring to join the forces or just gain confidence in things like leadership and things like that. So the RSA attended as well. Barry Calder, they presented an award, $500 grant for the most approved. And Don was there, of course. His son is the leader of the unit. So that's what I did last Wednesday.
Thank you very much, John, and received the appropriate recognition in the paper too.
John Williams.
John Williams.
Mentally.
Isn't he in jail? No, yeah, I forgot about the son, didn't they? Yeah. All right.
Excuse me, there's he needs a bell.
I do need a bell. 3 things.
Forget about you down there, too far away.
I know. It's the closest we've got now. It's okay.
Must be something to do with you.
Me? Yeah. To Gareth. Don't forget that, please. Gareth, just want to update Rodney Wilson had asked about the sewer issue in the foreshore at Okoto. Do you know much about that?
Yes, I'm not 100% sure where we're at. No, I said, I know we are dealing with it. I know Greg's working on it, but I haven't had an update from him in the recent days to know exactly.
Just give me one when you get a chance. One thing. The second one was the signs just gone up. I said a couple of texts while we've been here. People wonder why I'm on the phone. It's all council business. I shoot.
Of course.
But the signs have gone up for the Main Street, the canopies in the Turangi Mall. The sign probably reads a little bit bad. It says, danger, do not climb, unstable structure, risk of falling. I think what's meant to read is stop them from climbing up and kids falling down, but the locals are reading it that it's unstable, don't walk beneath it. That's how it reads. Do not climb, unstable structure, risk of falling. Which is right wording for Christmas.
It's probably true.
Well, yeah, probably is, but maybe we should reword that. Do not climb, unstable structure.
Detail with me, I'll get that.
Well, it says don't climb it.
I know, but, and the last thing was the tourists in Turangi, not that I want to get too far into that conversation, Gareth, because we know some sensitive issues around it. ETA, it's just Thursday. It is Thursday, so.
What's that for?
Temporarily closed the toilets in Turangi for significant cleaning.
The ones in the car park?
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones by the Mustard City.
Old Intercity.
Sorry?
Oh, where the buses pull up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So they were closed last Tuesday and I went to reopen them.
Just a quick question. Who's responsible for the roading up Mapara Road just before Acacia Heights Drive? Us? Someone else?
Council Road, yeah.
Pain in the neck. Who's doing it?
Why is it? Oh,
There's a hole in the road and it hasn't been fixed and clunk every day. It's just not fixed properly and I don't know who's doing that.
The suspension in your alley.
It's not good enough. It's breaking my wheels. It's right opposite Acacia Heights Drive, Mapara Road. And it's just been not fixed properly since before I went away. It's been like this about 4 weeks now. So it's like, you must find it really
and
annoying.
the signs are still up as though they're still working on it.
Yes, and it's just
a
a piece of roading about a foot wide. Somebody could fix it. I could probably fix
You've
it.
almost got to stop to go over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know who it is, but it's just really annoying. Thank you.
Can I also say that Tong and I have been going through our induction and there's a way to go yet and Tina's organised it for us, but it's been fantastic. The staff are I think they are amazing. So thank you. I've loved every minute of it. It's been great. And there's a wee way to go yet.
Staff will appreciate you coming around too.
Oh, they're so good. They know everything they need to know. So, no, it's been great. Thank you.
Look, it's a big business, a very
Oh, hell.
broad business. Isn't it?
And totally different than the impression out there. You know, everybody complains, but the reality is we've got something very solid to move forward on, and we've got a very capable staff, and we need to tell that story more often, I think. It's great. Thank you.
Well done.
All right, that's fine. So just, yep, moved and seconded, recommendation. The members' reports were received, and then he tabled up to Janie. Moved by councillor Berry and seconded by councillor Kirsty. Right, that's part there. Right, what's next? Okay. I'll move into.
You're off, are you?
Confidence.
See you, Rosie. See you, John.
Goodbye.
Have move up.
Yeah, I'm watching you, Mr. Williamson.
Have moved by councillor Williamson, seconded by councillor Boddy. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried.